Have you ever made a mistake in real estate? And should every person pursue real estate as part of their portfolio? Those are questions we are chatting about today. Hi, my name is Nicole, and I'd like to welcome you to the very first episode of the Real Estate Show on the Travel to Money podcast. I'm joined by my co-host and old friend, Jeremy Resmer, who is quite the real estate expert. I'm excited to learn from him and help all of you on your real estate journey. Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. What you got going on this week?
Well, I just got a text message about 5 minutes before we hopped on, and I've got a title issue with one of my properties. So I got that to fix this week, right before Christmas, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, Jeremy, I've known you for about 12 or 13 years now. For those of you listening, Jeremy and I worked at the same nonprofit for several years, and we've loosely stayed in touch over the last handful of years. Jeremy is the guy I call when my dreams need a little encouragement. But Jeremy, in the last couple of years, I saw you share some things in real estate, and now you own several real estate focused businesses. So can you catch me up a little bit? How did your real estate journey begin?
Yeah, so probably jumped in about 7 years ago or so. Had no real estate experience other than I owned a house, and I tried to sell a house in Colorado when the market was down and couldn't sell it, so I ended up having to rent it. And aside from that, just had a life change and basically said, hey, I'm going to hop into real estate. Went and hired a real estate coach, put some money on a credit card, and just took a lot of action and didn't really know what I was doing, but tried to lean on my coach a little bit and just figure things out along the way. So that's kind of how I got started.
Wow. So what exactly were you learning in these coaching sessions?
So it's interesting. Back when I started, there weren't all of the YouTube University, all the videos, and now you can search anything on Google or YouTube and you can find a video or, a podcast or something. But this was back in the earlier days when, there were fewer coaches, fewer gurus, if you will, teaching everything to people like me who just wanted to get started. So there was actually, my coach, I heard him on a Bigger Pockets podcast, and he had so much energy. He rang this bell. His name was Tom Kroll, Wholesaling Inc. He was nuts, man. And I loved everything about it. And I'm like, you know what? If this guy can do it and this guy can bring that kind of energy, like, this guy's for me. So I literally went online, put $5,000 on a credit card that I didn't really have. I did talk to my wife first, which was good. She supported me. And I just said, hey, we got to just do this. We have to do it. And so that was the start of it. And from there, it was basically don't worry about going and starting an LLC. Don't, go and get a logo. And his main focus, which I love because this guy is now really, really well known, really well respected, and he coaches a lot of other entrepreneurs, not just in real estate, but his focus was put revenue in first place. And so, if you don't have revenue, you don't need a logo. You don't need an LLC. And so he was adamant about it. And he said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some tips, and we're going to generate leads. I'm going to show you the basics of how to do this, and you're going to have to figure it out. And if you have questions, we can hop on the weekly calls. But it was actually fantastic because the way that this guy did his coaching was really more focused on, hey, you know what? Take imperfect action and we'll help you along the way. Anyone can figure this out. Let's figure out a way to do it, hopefully without too many hard lessons or expensive lessons. And so, it was really interesting. And man, I thought I was going to be a millionaire within no time. And I had 2 awesome deals right out of the gates, and there were title issues, and I literally could not close these properties. And so I went from, oh wow, I'm going to make so much money doing this, to holy crap, does this really work? Losing all my confidence. So, man, there have been a
Yeah.
lot of peaks and valleys in real estate. But, anyways, that's how I got started initially.
Wow. So that kind of reminds me of when you were mentioning don't go start an LLC. You don't need a logo. Like anytime I've had an idea, I will literally come up with a whole brand. I can't tell you how many websites I've built that I never did anything with. I was dating a guy a long time ago, and this was back before aluminum water bottles kind of became the thing. And I had this like idea. I was like, I can be the middleman between like ordering the bottles and the artists that are out on the road doing concerts, things like that. Of course, like a year or two later, that actually kind of became a big thing. So I'm designing all this stuff and doing all these things. And the guy I was dating he was a business owner. And so he was like, Nicole, go sell a water bottle. Go sell one. And if you can sell one, then see if you can sell 25 or, it was like, go kind of get
Yep.
your proof of concept through money, like get the sales. And that kind of sounds like what you're saying. And I think that's something I struggle with, is always trying to get all of the details perfect before you really engage. And so that's a really good lesson to learn. Do you think there's anything from what you learned in that process, any tips or anything that you would encourage people with?
Well, man, I'm a huge believer in coaching. I've hired so many coaches. I spent a lot of money investing in myself. And so it's interesting because a lot of people want to go to YouTube, and YouTube is great, right? It's a great starter. It's
Yep.
great to learn an overview on a particular topic. But some people want to go for all of the info, like, hey, this guy told me this, so it's gospel, right? And so I would tell people that, you could probably learn a good 80 to 90% of what you need to get started in real estate investing. However, it's that 10% that's so crucial. So for me as an investor, I'm not a licensed agent. I took a little bit different path. I just wanted to design kind of my lifestyle, and investing was really the path that I took because it fit better with my personality and kind of what I was looking to do. Um, but I would say that there's just a few pieces of information that like you can't get unless you either learn it, which is kind of a trial by fire, right? You might
Mm-hmm.
pay for it if you make a big mistake. It might cost you literally thousands and thousands of dollars. Or if you hire someone, yeah, you might pay a little bit up front. You might say, yeah, I don't have the money to do that. But I'll guarantee that had you known the difference between hiring a coach who helps you avoid a much bigger mistake, you would look back and say, hey, shoot, I should have just went and hired a coach. Or, man, if I could have just saved that money. Because I've seen people do this where they get themselves in a bind and they go buy a property and they don't know anything about foundation work. And they're like, oh my gosh, I just bought this property and it needs like 30 grand in foundation work. And it's like, okay,
Right.
you could have avoided that, right? That's just one little example.
Mm-hmm.
Or, something about contracts, or, hey, you could have just consulted an attorney actually for free. They probably would have done this. But, oh, I got this contract online and it was good over in Arizona and they told me it was good in all 50 states. So, like all these little things, right? So, yeah, I think hiring a coach is one thing for sure that, um, man, it's one of the best uses of money, in my opinion, and has saved me a lot of money and has actually elevated my ability or taken me to places that I didn't anticipate much faster because they knew
Right.
certain things and they could direct me. Oh, have you thought about this? Hey, have you thought about investing in land? Have you thought about apartments? No, I didn't. Tell me more.
Mm.
So for me, I'm a huge advocate of investing in yourself because, that won't be a wasted investment.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I just kind of an example, using my own self, not hiring a coach as the downfall here, but I'm doing content creation, right? And I started doing this a few years ago and had a huge influx of followers on Instagram. And I think a lot of people looking at that thought I must do that full time. And I was making $0 doing it. And there's another girl that does similar type of content. She actually helps people become content creators who can work remotely, like how to build your content creation business. I think I had around 85,000 followers on Instagram. She has around 50. I'm making $0. She's making 100K. and she attributes it to hiring a coach. There was, I think it was maybe Nomadic Matt or someone has this really huge famous blog. She probably spent quite a bit of money hiring him up front as soon as she got started, and it just launched her into something really successful. So I'm kind of sold at this point.
The other thing is like for me, so I've had coaches that have helped me kind of one-on-one, right? But then there's also like masterminds, which are huge too, because if you're in a niche like real estate, or maybe you're a land investor, or maybe whatever it is that you do that you're into, when you're in a room with other people who are doing maybe more than you, or bigger, or they've done just other things, now all of a sudden like you become like the people that you associate with, right? So I always talk to my kids. It's kind of funny. Hey, if you guys aspire to be like a great athlete, my son, he wants to be a soccer or basketball player. Either one, I think. I'm like, hey, well, then you want to get around other people that are better basketball and soccer players than you, right? Because if those kids are really good, you're gonna spend time with them. You're gonna be like them, right? In the same way, our parents have always said to us too, at least mine did. Hey, if you hang around with the wrong crowd, you're gonna become like them. And so,
Right.
I think it works both ways. And I'm just a huge believer that when you're in the right rooms with people who have already done the things that you want to do, you're setting yourself up for success. And so, not only do you have access to their network, but you've got access to their knowledge. And there's just so many benefits to that. So that's been one of the biggest things. I wish I would have done that earlier. In fact, It took me until a couple of years ago to really put myself in the right rooms with a whole slew of other investors. But it's probably 10 to 100 times the investment. It's paid off for me. So now I'm just like, okay, where do I need to be? How can I go and, get into other rooms? Sometimes it requires me to spend more. Sometimes I'm not spending any more money. It's just, hey, I'm trying to get into a new niche. And so it's a new network. So anyways, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And so, man, I would just encourage anybody who's looking to grow. That's one of the fastest ways to do it.
That's incredible. Well, kind of going back to your story a little bit, it sounds like the kind of time where you're trying to figure out what to do financially next and what to do career-wise. Was that sort of the inflection point for you, or what were the inflection points that led you into real estate?
Yeah, I think for me, I was working in nonprofit. So
Yeah.
my wife and I had just lived overseas and we had adopted. We came back to the States. We didn't re-enter well. We were going through all sorts of challenges. Did we have some financial challenges? Yeah, but that really wasn't the biggest one. I would say the biggest one was, man, just relationally, marriage-wise. We were struggling in our marriage. I was traveling all over the world. And I had 3 kids now instead of 1. And then we had the financial stress. And so it was like all those things adding up. And I just felt like, I can just try to figure this out and tough it out. But I wasn't going to do that at the expense of my family. And so, ultimately it was best for me to step away from that. And I didn't really know what to do next. I didn't really have anything. But I knew that, I've started different businesses in the past. I've always had an interest in real estate and always said, hey, this is something I'd like to do. And so, I really just said, hey, you know what? I felt like this was the direction and the timing was good. And I really didn't have a plan B. It was just kind of like, hey, I'm going to go figure this out. There's other people that have done this that have less experience, less knowledge, maybe. And so I'm like, hey, I can use some of the skills and whatnot. If other people can do it, I can do it. So that's kind of where I landed. And it was like burn the ships as far as like, there's no plan B. I'm just going to figure this out. So
sometimes it's hard to see mistakes as mistakes, but can you identify any mistakes you've made in real estate that you've learned from since you started?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, where to start, right? One would be, you want to buy right because you don't make your money when you sell. You make your money when you buy. So if you overpay for a property, I mean, you may have lost right from the get-go. So you have to really know, what you're buying. You have to know what the property is worth, the amount of work that's going into it. Um, there's a saying that no deal is better than a bad deal. And it's kind of along that premise, which is, if you buy a bad deal, you might lose from the start and you might be struggling doing all the work, knowing that, oh crap, I thought this house was worth 400,000 fixed up and it only needed 25,000. But in reality, it may have needed 50,000 and it's only worth maybe 375. So you're squeezing yourself on both ends. So yeah, I've definitely been in situations where, I was chasing deals. Oh, I got to get a deal, right? We can't let this one slip through our fingers. And so, we took a property, we paid a little bit more than we wanted to. We got into it and realized, oh, it needs more work. So I don't chase deals anymore. Fortunately, I don't have to. But when I first started, I didn't know any better. And so I was chasing deals and, it's just one of those things where you don't know it until you know it, until you go through it. And so
Yeah.
that was one. Man, what else? Another one would be when I first got involved, I was like, oh, shoot, I've got two awesome deals. All right, I'm going to go invest in SEO and PPC. And so I locked myself into a 1-year commitment on both of those where I was paying like $2,200 a month. Those two deals that I had locked up that I mentioned earlier, I couldn't close because they had title issues and they were just like no one could, like the seller couldn't actually sell them because of the way that the estate documents were drafted. So I couldn't actually make my money. And yet I just incurred or locked myself into a 12-month commitment with SEO and pay-per-click. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so now I'm like, holy cow, now I really have to go find some revenue because I had these two deals. I'm thinking, right, which is long term. I'm going to be in this, for the long term. So go and do the things I need to do to generate leads and to build my brand and to own my space online. And sure enough, I'm like, oh, wow, I can't pay for those things because these deals unfortunately couldn't close. So it was like one thing after the next. I kept making all these mistakes. And it was like some of it was timing. Some of it was bad luck. Some of it was like, hey, I wish I would have known that. But at the end of the day, like my big win was I just refused to give up. I'm like, nope, gotta go, find a deal, gotta make some money, gotta prove that this works to myself, to my wife. I'm like, I have a family. So it
Yeah.
was just like I couldn't quit. And that was really it for me. That was the motivating factor. So definitely made a lot of these mistakes, but
Right.
the no quit attitude got me through it.
Yeah, that's really incredible. It's like sometimes you almost need that fire kind of lit under you. And it sounds kind of like you had it there, which is uh, not always fun in the process, but getting to the other side of it probably feels pretty good. So, for the listeners who are maybe new to real estate, do you think real estate should be part of every person's portfolio in one way or another? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about real estate is it's a hard asset, right? So, there's a lot of talk about the dollar and fiat money, and it's only worth what people believe it's worth, right? There's nothing really behind it, especially with in this inflationary world that we live in. But with real estate, you actually you own a piece of land, or you own a house, or an apartment building, or whatever it is. So, I think it's really important for anyone that wants to get involved in real estate to kind of identify what's your niche, right? Some people love owning rentals. Some people want to flip houses. Some people just want to flip land or own land and accumulate it. There's so many different ways to actually make money in real estate. But really the other benefits to me are more, I think they're less talked about, which is like there's all these tax loopholes, right? You get
Mm-hmm.
depreciation. You have somebody else, if you have a rental property, someone else might pay down your mortgage. So you get the amortization of that mortgage paid down by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's cash flow. There's all these different pieces that, really depending on your situation, do you want to leave your W-2 or do you want to do real estate full time, or do you want to, do you love your W-2 job, or do you have something else and you just need real estate for the tax advantages? There's so many different ways to look at this that I would just say, everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can kind of identify why you want to do this, going back to your why, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can identify that, then it can really help to direct what type of asset class or what type of real estate you get in. So I know some people that they want to be totally passive. So they want to invest in apartment buildings, but they don't want to actually have to go do the work. They don't want to manage the properties. So they invest in these syndications, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they can actually give, let's say, $50,000 where they invest in a apartment building, and they don't have to go and manage, they don't have to go do any of the work, but they still get the tax advantages, they still get the preferred returns. And so there's all these different types of real estate, and it's just really important to figure out, hey, what fits best with your personality. If you don't want to do repairs, if you don't want to fix toilets, all that, then maybe being a landlord isn't your thing. So but there's opportunities for anyone. You just need to figure out what works for you.
I haven't done a ton in real estate, but one of the things that I have done are some different creative things with Airbnb. And the main difference over the last couple of years is that I've been living in a pretty large rental in Orlando, and I have a little 1-bedroom attached to it. And my roommate and I partnered up on it and turned it into an Airbnb. And basically, between that and rent we get from another roommate, our rent is entirely paid for, our bills are entirely paid for, and we've even made a little profit, which has been great to live rent free in a time where rent is skyrocketing. But the difference in this Airbnb versus any of the other ones I've done before was that I was doing the work of it, and I do not like that. So I'm about done with it. We found some long-term renters to kind of finish out the lease term, which has been nice. But I do think those sorts of things are important. And you're right, there's so many different ways to do it. And I think in another episode, we're going to talk through all the different types of ways that you can invest in real estate. We might not touch on all of them, but I'm looking forward to chatting more about that. Are you on social media? Where can people learn more about you or what you do?
Facebook, honestly, is the place where I'm at. So interestingly enough, I've taken a little bit of a hiatus, and I'm now coming back. There's just so much has been going on in my businesses where, some people, their brand is their business, but for my businesses, I spend a lot of time interacting and engaging with people online, but I haven't done as much promotion. So, people can find me on Facebook, message me, and, I love to engage with people about real estate and really anything. I love talking shop. So I'd be happy to talk through anything really. But yeah, Facebook's probably the best way.
Well, Jeremy, this has been so much fun. I'm thrilled to be doing this podcast with you, and I can't wait to jump in more next week when we jump into talking about deciding whether to flip properties or rent them. For all of you out there watching or listening, thank you for being here. I'd love for you to subscribe and let us know if there's any real estate questions we can answer for you. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.